Hey, I'm Schanno Johnson, and if you don't know me, I'm a musician, composer, producer, and I make videos about all that fun stuff, music composition, music production, so hit that subscribe button to see more videos like this in the future. So today's video is going to be about how you can add more interest to a pad. So you're designing an instrument and it's mostly playing held chords, sort of like block chords, and you want it to be a little more interesting than just holding down those notes and playing them. Right, you want them to have some interest there, maybe some development with the sound as it plays. That's what we're going to talk about. How can you make a synth that's more interesting than just holding down the chords and sustaining them? What can you change within the sound to get there? And the main thing is you can add effects and slowly change them over time. So if you take a listen to most of the songs on my album Expanding an Electric Symphony, available on Spotify, iTunes, Bandcamp, Tidal, wherever you listen to music, most of those songs have some type of change or modulation of certain effects. The common one is you add a filter on something and you slowly open that filter. I have a whole other video about filters if you want to go check it out. That's one way you can add interest to a pad, open up or close a filter. You can also do it with distortion. I'm a big fan of this one because it makes it a little more interesting and it's a little less common than filters. If you have an instrument that slowly gets more distorted as the song goes on, or as your section or 4-bar loop goes on, that's a different type of automation and effect that you maybe don't hear as often. So you can add automation to distortion. You could also do this with whatever other effects you have. Maybe you have chorus and you want the chorus to be slightly stronger at the end of a phrase or at the end of a song than at the beginning, or you want there to be more delay or more reverb. All these things will add some interest and make your sound a little more interesting because it's being ever so slightly changed as the song goes on. If you listen to the exact synth at the beginning versus the exact synth at the end, they might sound slightly different. That's what makes it a little more interesting to listen to, because it's not always the same thing. It is slightly changing. One example of a song that does this is a song of mine. It's called Movement to Breathing from my album Expanding an Electric Symphony. I'll play a little snippet of it for you here so that you can hear what I'm talking about. So there's a pad there and it's playing this opening, this contrapuntal little thing, and it has a filter that's opening and closing. That's how you can add some interest to the effect. There's some other automation on that where you're adding chorus and then pulling back chorus and adding slightly more chorus. The main thing is that there is some automation on that instrument that's being changed in real time as it plays. So it's being slowly edited and slowly changed, so it's not just staying stagnant and staying that one pad. Another thing you can do is add a step gate to control certain effects. I personally use Reason, and one great thing that you can do in Reason is use control voltage or CV routing. Now what that is you're using one signal to control another, basically, and it's all data. So let's say you have that step gate, it's randomly going through certain levels, and you want those levels to control, let's say, the levels of a filter or the levels of delay or the levels of distortion. So you can route that data to control some other effect. If you turn them around or hit tab in Reason, then you'll be able to see all of the wiring, and you'll be able to see that you can use the CV out into CV in somewhere else on some other module. It's a great way to add some randomization, and it'll add some interest that's maybe not so predictable, right? If you every 2 beats open and close your filter a little bit, or you add some distortion and pull back the distortion and add some distortion, that can get a little old. But if you want to add some randomization, some warble, some weirdness, some glitchiness to it, you can use a step gate to control some effects, and that will get you maybe a little bit more random, warbly sound than if you just wrote all of the data in yourself. Now, the last way that I would recommend doing this is you take automation and warble and the step gate, and you put them together. So rather than just doing one or the other, you add maybe one layer of randomization where you have a step gate controlling, let's say, the amount of chorus, but you take it down a little bit so it's not fully changing the chorus from one end of the spectrum to the other, right? It's not going from 0 to 127 or 0 to 100 or whatever it is and back. Maybe you limit the range of that effect and that change, so it's not really changing everything a whole bunch, but just changing it a little bit so that you have that randomization, that added interest in your pad. Another example of a song of mine that does a ton of this is my song Dozing Off in a Tin Can from my EP Starshine. Again, it's everywhere you can find music. It's on Tidal, Spotify, Bandcamp, iTunes, Apple Music. Here on my YouTube channel, you can find it in one of the other uploads. So that song, Dozing Off in a Tin Can, if you skip to about halfway through, about the 3-minute, 30-second mark, then you can hear there's an instrument in there that has a ton of all of these effects, right? I have multiple step gates affecting multiple things on the sound and changing up all of these different things. Basically, it's being randomized so that you can hear one thing gets louder really quickly, then softer, then louder, and softer, and maybe it's in the middle for a little bit. And that specific change is happening over the course of 16th notes. So it can give you a little bit more of an interesting sound. I personally really like the sound because it adds some randomness, it adds some interest to this pad that might not be playing the most interesting thing. And you're then working more on the sound design of the music rather than specific notes and specific chords and rhythms and all of that. All right, here's a short clip from my song Dozing Off in a Tin Can that has a whole bunch of this step gate and CV routing. So you can hear in that all of this randomness, all of these random rhythms and random changes and random effects being changed around to a rhythm. It adds this interest, it adds this other element to the pad that's not just holding a chord and then cutting off. I love it as a way to add some other elements into your music where you're adding some sound design elements into it. So it's not just about the notes and the rhythms and the chords, it's also about the specific electronic choices and programmed choices that you make into your own instruments. So you're making your instruments to further your musical expression. It's this whole other element that's available to you only with electronic instruments. And I think it can add a ton of interest once you really get used to it and once you figure out how certain things will sound and how certain effects will change your sound. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something about music. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for watching. See you next time. Peace.